The cobalt-60 radiation therapy that was developed here by Harold Johns and his team was the first in the world to successfully treat a cancer patient, and it went on to save the lives of millions of cancer patients around the world. Its casing was made not that far from here on Idlewild Drive at the Acme Machine Company. It's a true Saskatchewan story of a can-do attitude and world-class expertise right here in this province, this city, and this university. It wouldn't have happened, though, without the work of graduate student at the time, Sylvia Fedoruk, after whom the Sylvia Fedoruk Canadian Centre for Nuclear Innovation is named. She was responsible for ensuring the machine's accuracy, critical to its success. That pioneering spirit continues to this day across our campuses, and we were just reminded of that on today's tour of the Sylvia Fedoruk Canadian Centre for Nuclear Innovation that we just completed. The University of Saskatchewan and the Fedoruk Centre are committed to finding local solutions to national and global challenges for the benefit of the many communities that we serve. Today's announcement aligns with our research mission and our dedication to continually push the boundaries of science and discovery and to sow the seeds of innovation. We're honored to be joined today by the federal government for this exciting announcement. And I'm proud to welcome home the Honorable Jonathan Wilkinson, a graduate of the University of Saskatchewan who went on to become a Rhodes Scholar in 1988 and now serves as Canada's Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Jonathan Wilkinson to make today's announcement.
Thank you very much, Peter, for the very kind introduction. It is certainly a pleasure to be back at the University of Saskatchewan, my alma mater. I did my undergraduate work here. I do want to begin by also acknowledging that the land on which we are meeting is Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. Before I get to today's announcement, I do want to speak to all Canadians who are watching in horror as devastating wildfires continue to sweep across this country. I want to express my deepest sympathies to the folks from Yellowknife and Kelowna and countless other communities throughout the Northwest Territories and British Columbia who have been forced to flee their homes, and for some whose homes have been burnt down. Today, the Prime Minister convened another incident response group with ministers and senior officials to discuss the ongoing wildfire situation. The bottom line is that this is our government's #1 priority and its most important responsibility at this point in time. We continue to work across federal departments to provide communities with the support they need to keep people safe and healthy. We are actively helping, and we will continue to help people in Northwest Territories and British Columbia and across Canada for as long as it takes. At the heart of this response are the men and women who make up our Canadian Armed Forces, who yesterday alone had 2 evacuation flights departing from Yellowknife, one of which was a Globemaster, which transported approximately 40 medical evacuees and long-term care residents to Vancouver, and another was through a Hercules, which evacuated approximately 40 passengers to Edmonton and Calgary. My department, Energy and Natural Resources Canada, and I are significantly engaged in this government's response to keeping people safe. I was actually in Prince Albert earlier today, meeting with the Prince Albert Grand Council's Indigenous wildfire stewards, whom the federal government is providing over $500,000 in funding to increase community capacity, wildfire readiness, and response. And just over a week ago, I announced with the International Association of Firefighters a pilot program to train 325 structural firefighters to equip them with the skills they need to suppress fires in the wildland-urban interface. Training in Kamloops is already underway, and it will continue elsewhere in Western Canada over the coming months. We are also providing $13.2 million over 5 years through our equipment fund to the government of the Northwest Territories to purchase specialized wildfire equipment, external services such as helicopters and seasonal detection aircraft, and to train and hire additional personnel. Funding is flowing right now to the territorial government, and we are actively exploring how we can expand this support with immediate effect. The federal government is providing the government of British Columbia with money from the same fund to purchase vital wildfire firefighting equipment, including flight simulator, computer components, water tanks, generators, pumps, forklifts, and trailers. These climate-related disasters that we are seeing in Canada right now are certainly one of the reasons we continue to advance our actions to combat climate change with urgency. To today's announcement. It is a great pleasure to be at the University of Saskatchewan, home to the Sylvia Fedoruk Centre, an important facility placing the province among the global leaders in nuclear research, development, and training. As somebody who grew up in Saskatoon and who did my undergraduate here at the University of Saskatchewan, I cannot think of a better place for this important announcement. Mais comme le montrent les situations actuelles dans les territoires du Nord-Ouest et en Colombie-Britannique, nous sommes réunis dans le contexte de l'une des saisons d'incendie de forêt les plus destructrices de l'histoire du Canada, alimentée par le changement climatique. En fait, si l'on considère l'entièreté des terres brûlées jusqu'à présent, il s'agit de la pire saison d'incendie de forêt jamais enregistrée. Les incendies de forêt ont toujours existé au Canada, mais ce qui est nouveau, c'est leur fréquence et leur intensité. Et la science est claire. La cause principale est le changement climatique. In the immediate term, our priority must be making sure that amidst these climate-related disasters, affected communities are supported. But beyond the immediate term, as a country, we have a choice to make about our environmental and our economic future. There are effectively two paths that we can take. The first path accepts that climate change is a reality, a scientific reality, one that we can and that we must address. It recognizes that the world is moving in this direction and that this is creating a shift in investment and innovation, and that this shift can open up economic opportunities for those who are thoughtful and those who are strategic. The second path starts with shrugging off the damage that climate change is already causing in our communities, the floods in our towns and cities, wildfires in our forests, dried up rivers, melting glaciers. It pretends that climate concern is a fad that will fade and that we really don't need to do anything significant to keep our economy or our planet healthy for the long term. I think of the first path as having a plan for the future, a real plan for the future, and the second is hoping for the best. I will tell you that this federal government has chosen the first path. If we make smart policy choices now and plan for the future, we can address climate change and create thousands and thousands of well-paying jobs along the way. It bears emphasizing that in this global race to net zero, an electricity grid that powers our homes, our businesses, our industries, our country with clean, reliable, and affordable electricity is mission critical for every province and territory in this country. It is important in the context, yes, of decarbonizing the electricity grid, but it is also critically important because it is an enabler for us to reduce emissions in transportation, in buildings, and in industrial processes. It is also increasingly key to being able to seize the economic opportunities that can be enabled through a transition to a low-carbon future. Here in Saskatchewan, the Jansen Potash Mine will be the lowest carbon-emitting potash mine in the world. That is a choice that was made by BHP because they have to account for the carbon that is embedded in the products that they sell. Increasingly, we're seeing that across the board. In Alberta, with Dow, who wants to build a large-scale net-zero petrochemical facility. In Ontario, with green steel. In Quebec, with green aluminum. And certainly, batteries and other technologies are looking for the same thing, clean power. This will demand, yes, a decarbonized grid, but it's also going to demand a much larger grid. In fact, we are going to need to double or more the amount of electricity we generate in this country by 2050. The good news is that Canada already has a head start. Over 80% of our grid is non-emitting. However, as we work to bring electricity in every region of this country to ensure that it is reliable, non-emitting, and affordable, we have to recognize that different provinces and territories have unique challenges and opportunities. And we must be committed to working collaboratively to develop pathways to ensure every region of Canada succeeds in this important endeavor. As I say, provinces and territories have different starting points. For example, British Columbia, Quebec, Manitoba, Newfoundland and Labrador already have close to 100% non-emitting grids, But that's not the case in Saskatchewan, a province that still meets many of its energy needs with coal and unabated natural gas. There will necessarily need to be different pathways to achieving the clean grid of the future. While Quebec has abundant hydro resources to serve as a source of baseload power, Saskatchewan will look to solutions including abated natural gas, renewables with storage, and yes, nuclear energy. This clean electricity transformation and the benefits that it will bring will look different in every region of Canada, which calls for a plan that recognizes this, the diversity of our country, one that works to ensure the prosperity of every region of Canada. A couple of weeks ago, I released the federal government's vision for the future of electricity, a vision aimed at ensuring all regions of this country will have access to clean, reliable, and affordable electricity. This paper, which we called Powering Canada Forward, articulates the federal government's vision of how, with hard work and active collaboration with provinces and territories, Indigenous leaders, academic institutions, and a range of other stakeholders, Canada can achieve a clean electricity grid that is reliable and affordable in all parts of this country. The paper recognizes that much of the future is electric, that meeting our climate goals and competing in a rapidly decarbonizing global economy means we need to strengthen our clean electricity advantage. Le document Propulser le Canada dans l'avenir détaille les mesures que nous avons prises jusqu'à présent pour nous aider à fournir de l'électricité propre à toutes les régions du pays. Il décrit la série de réglementations, d'incitatifs et d'investissements que nous allons continuer à exploiter au niveau fédéral pour aller plus loin. Il met clairement en évidence la nécessité d'une collaboration pan-canadienne pour nous permettre d'atteindre nos objectifs. Il souligne également que ces dernières nécessiteront un véritable effort national. It represents a call to action to accelerate discussions and work among provinces like Saskatchewan, territories, Indigenous leaders, utilities and industry, the private sector, unions, academics, and civil society about how we can work together to build that clean, reliable, and affordable electric grid. Just 2 weeks ago, my colleague, Minister Guilbeault, released Canada's draft Clean Electricity Regulations. It aims to provide regulatory clarity, enabling the necessary investments to be made early enough to ensure we achieve a net zero electricity grid that is also reliable and affordable. Importantly for Saskatchewan, these draft regulations provide the flexibility needed to support grid reliability by allowing the province's existing gas plants to operate for the length of their prescribed life, for peaker plants to run unabated when necessary, and provide for new natural gas plants to be constructed with the use of carbon capture and sequestration. The electricity and clean energy conversation is one that looks different, as I say, in different parts of this vast and different land. We must be thoughtful and sensitive to local resources and circumstances, and we must work in active collaboration, but we also must be bold. Which brings me to today. It is my pleasure to announce that the federal government will be providing up to $74 million to SaskPower and the government of Saskatchewan to support SaskPower's first proposed small modular reactor project. These federal funds will support SaskPower's pre-engineering work and technical studies, environmental assessments, regulatory studies, and community and Indigenous engagement to help advance this important project. This includes $50 million in funds from Natural Resources Canada and another $24 million from Environment and Climate Change Canada. SaskPower has selected the GE Hitachi BWRX-300 as the prime technology and expects to make a final project decision in 2029. This project builds on an announcement by the Government of Ontario last year that it would build the first SMR at its Darlington nuclear facility, and that SMR is intended to be operational in 2029. SMRs represent a new field of innovation in nuclear technology, one that has the potential to provide abundant, non-emitting power and to spur economic activity and growth, and one that could drive decarbonization in heavy industry, helping Canada to achieve its climate goals. Canada has very long been a nuclear leader. We have a world-class regulator and a strong domestic supply chain that employs over 75,000 Canadians already. Our nuclear sector already helps us to avoid 80 million tons of carbon emissions a year in Ontario and New Brunswick. It has helped Ontario attract investment and move away from coal, going from 53 smog days a year to zero. And of course, CANDU reactors are a made-in-Canada innovation that have been exported around the world. With today's announcement, we are building on this legacy and investing in the future of non-emitting nuclear technologies to power us forward, a future that leverages Saskatchewan's world-leading production of uranium to create jobs and help bring non-emitting, reliable, and affordable power to Saskatchewanians across this province. This important announcement complements other recent federal government initiatives to ensure Saskatchewan will thrive economically and environmentally in a low-carbon future. Just a short drive from here, BHP is developing the Jansen Potash Line mine with $74 million in federal government support. The mine is expected to not only be the biggest in the world, but also the most sustainable and lowest emission potash mine in the world when it starts production in 2026. In the south of the province, the Cowessess First Nation is developing a 200 megawatt wind project and a 10 megawatt solar farm to generate clean power and create well-paying jobs and local economic opportunities. These projects were made possible through funding provided by Natural Resources Canada and the Canada Infrastructure Bank. These are just a few examples of projects already underway. In addition, we are actively engaged in discussions on a range of other potential projects, including Saskatchewan Research Council's critical mineral processing work and the Foran Mining net zero copper mining proposal in northeastern Saskatchewan. There are enormous economic opportunities that are available for Saskatchewan if we are thoughtful and if we are strategic in the transition towards a low-carbon future. I believe very much that Canada works best when Canadians work together. To be successful in building an economy that will thrive in a rapidly decarbonizing world, we will need the active collaboration of governments, Indigenous leaders, industry, and labor. It is important in every province and territory. It is certainly very important here in Saskatchewan. To me, while I live in British Columbia, Saskatchewan has been and will always be one of my homes. It is where I grew up. It is where I built memories with my family. It is where I always return to spend time in the beauty that is Saskatchewan's boreal forest. And perhaps it is also why I am so excited about the tremendous possibilities that exist for this province if we are thoughtful, strategic, collaborative, and bold. I very much look forward to working with folks at the announcement today, with the Government of Saskatchewan, and with Saskatchewanians across the province to ensure we seize the opportunities that lie before us. I do want to thank very much the University of Saskatchewan for hosting us today. And with that, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Minister Wilkinson. And I am delighted to welcome you back to your alma mater and that your government's announcement has been held right here. Your SMR project funding announcement marks an exciting day for our province as we look forward to exploring the development of clean, safe, and efficient small modular reactors as a sustainable energy option and to creating new opportunities in our communities. And the University of Saskatchewan and the Fedoric Centre are proud to support this new development as we look ahead to an exciting future of collaboration and innovation in support of advancing nuclear science on our campuses throughout the province and across the country. Thank you all once again for joining us here today. And I would now like to invite members of the media to come forward for the opportunity to conduct interviews with the minister. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Let's do one question and a follow-up. Please introduce yourself and your organization, and we'll get rolling.
Sure, Minister. Jason Warwick from CBC. What would you have to say to the people of Kelowna, Yellowknife, elsewhere, who are worried about their families, about their properties, about their future? What would you say to them?
Well, I mean, look, it's heartbreaking watching what is happening. It's heartbreaking hearing the stories of people who are losing their homes, having to move their families, having to evacuate their children in the face of such dangerous conditions. What I would say to them is, I think all Canadians are feeling for folks who have been directly impacted. And what those folks need to know is that irrespective of partisan affiliation, governments at different levels are working actively to try to do everything that we possibly can to fight the fires, but also to support the people who actually have been impacted or have been evacuated from these communities. And that is true at the provincial and territorial level. It is certainly true at the municipal level. The Government of Canada is acting, and we are very much looking at what more we can do to be part of the solution here to help families that have been affected.
Do you think to this point you've done enough?
Well, I certainly think that we have acted early. Part of this is reacting in the moment in terms of the support that's been required. And as you've seen, the Canadian Armed Forces, for example, has been deployed across this country over the past number of months. We have worked with international partners. I signed a new agreement with the Americans just a few months ago to try to facilitate the exchange of firefighters and firefighting equipment across borders, and we've done that with other countries as well. We've certainly been there coordinating with the provinces and territories in terms of support services for people that have been impacted. But there's also the discussion with respect to upstream as to how do we actually get in front of this. Like, this is unfortunately, the new normal. Maybe not quite to the extremes that we're seeing this summer, but climate change is creating conditions that are going to mean more in the way of forest fires. They're going to be more in the way of dry conditions and more heat. And we need to find ways to get in front of that. We just released a few months ago Canada's first national adaptation strategy. Part of that is about trying to get in front of that with programs like Fire Smart, with programs like training the International Association of Firefighters to help us with that interface between communities and the wildlands. So, look, I mean, we are doing everything that we possibly can think of. We are open to suggestions from other levels of government. We're working actively with them. But for folks who are impacted, it's hard to say you've done enough. They've been impacted. At the end of the day, we are doing everything that we possibly can, and I think that's what Canadians would expect of their leaders.
Can you say Radio Canada, is all the population of Yellowknife has been evacuated at this time? In French, if you can also.
In English and French, or?
Yes.
Okay. So my understanding is certainly people have been told to evacuate. My understanding is there may still be some people who have not yet left, and I know that the municipality is working to encourage those folks to leave. Once people have been asked to leave, they obviously do need to leave. I know how hard that would be for many people in terms of leaving their property, but they do need to leave for their own safety. Je comprends que il y a quelques gens qui restent maintenant à Yellowknife, mais presque tous ont parti déjà. Mais il y a quelques gens qui veulent être avec leur maison et les choses comme ça. Mais c'est important quand le gouvernement dit qu'on doit partir, on doit partir. C'est une question de sauveté.
CTV News. I was just going to ask about Saskatchewan is a leader in uranium production and exports around the world as well. But recently, with developments in West Africa, we have seen the supply chain as far as uranium be severely disrupted. I just want to ask you a little bit about uranium and the importance of this industry here in Saskatchewan and the potential future of it.
So, I mean, uranium's been an important part of the Saskatchewan economy for a long time. But as you know, we sort of went into a dip in the development of new nuclear projects for a number of years. And I think that there is great reason to be optimistic about the prospects for uranium and for Saskatchewan. Nuclear energy is going to be part of the energy mix of the future as we move towards a non-emitting grid. It is not a silver bullet. It's not going to be used everywhere for everything, but it is absolutely something that many jurisdictions are going to rely on as part of their overall energy mix. And you look around the world, countries like France already rely on that. Ontario here relies on that. I think you are going to see increased demand for uranium as a result of that. I also think, and we've already seen, that there's increased demand for uranium because one of the other major producers is Belarus, and increasingly people are trying to move away from the utilization of uranium that comes from Belarus. I noted that Cameco recently signed an agreement with Ukraine to look at shifting the uranium source that is utilized in some of those reactors. And I think that will also encourage further development. But I would also say that I think Saskatchewan has an enormous opportunity. Cameco's recent acquisition of Westinghouse puts it in a different game. It's not just about producing uranium, it's actually about nuclear technology. And I think that, Tim Gitzel, I've known Tim Gitzel, the CEO of Cameco, for many years. We worked together for the government of Saskatchewan many years ago. I think that there is enormous reason to be optimistic about the prospects for this province in the context of this conversation around nuclear energy.
And I'll follow up on that a little bit. As far as exports to other countries go, we understand that. Although Canada didn't really import a lot of uranium from West African nations, we know that countries like France and a lot of European countries, and even the United States did as well. Could you speak to a little bit about that? I remember you mentioned as well that you had an upcoming France trip. Is this on the agenda for that?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, the conversation that we will be having in Paris is around critical minerals, and of course, uranium is one of the critical minerals. And certainly, we will be talking about Canada's desire to be there to support our friends and allies around the world with critical minerals, one of which is uranium. Certainly others that Canada aspires to be a producer and an exporter of as well. I would also say we have active work going on with the United States on the nuclear fuel cycle. I think everybody is looking at how they can ensure going forward that they are more energy secure. One way for our allies to be more energy secure is to buy more energy from Canada.
Net carbon free, I mean, like no pollution with this new technology?
No pollution associated with the generation of energy. We obviously also have to look at the materials that go into building a plant. So cement, for example, we have to get to the point where we're producing net zero cement and net zero steel. But once you have a plant built, it is net zero. It does not produce carbon emissions. Yes, I mean, from the Government of Canada's perspective, and I think it's shared with the Government of Saskatchewan, it is very important that we are involving Indigenous communities in these conversations. It's important going forward that a lot of these major projects that we're involving Indigenous communities as equity participants in projects, whether that's mining or it's small modular reactors or it's hydrogen production, that's part of economic reconciliation, is ensuring that some of the economic benefits from projects that take place on their traditional territories actually flow back to those communities. C'est très important que les Autochtones sont une partie des grands projets. C'est important dans l'enjeu de réconciliation que les bénéfices restent avec les communautés autochtones aussi. Et bien sûr, nous allons avoir beaucoup de conversations avec les Autochtones pour ce projet, mais pour les autres projets miniers et les autres choses. C'est important pour accélérer nos efforts, mais aussi pour la réconciliation économique.